All right, so I'm gonna go through kind of a series of flint knapping clips, videos. First off, I want to start off with showing you some of the tools and stuff. Now, this has been a long time coming for me, as that I'm not the greatest flint knapper. There's plenty of flint knappers out there that are really, really good. Some of them I implore you to check out. Paleo Man Jim on YouTube especially is really good, and he's a good teacher as well. He explains things very, very well. I've used him as a resource, and I've also used Eddie Starnader and Julie Martin of Practical Primitive on YouTube, also the practicalprimitive.com website. Check them out, man. It's a good flint knapping video out there, and lots of other cool primitive technology stuff, and they run a very cool school as well. If you're interested in primitive skills and wilderness survival, definitely check them out. I want to kind of do my take on flint knapping and what I understand about it, what I know. So right now I'm going to start off with the tools, and first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through some of the tools in flint knapping, both modern and primitive. So I'll start off with primitive, right? So first off, we have a rock. So we got a rock here, and this is a rough rock. It's like sandstone. It's very rough, and we're going to need this as an abrader. All right, there's going to be lots of terminology as we talk about this. This is a rock. It also will work as a percussion flaker. So again, lots of terminology. There's percussion knapping or flaking, and there is there's percussion and there's pressure. Percussion and pressure. So along those lines, for primitive, this is an antler tine. It's a part of an antler from a deer, and it's got a point to it, and this would be used for pressure flaking. So whereas a rock could be used for percussion, hitting, this is good for pressure flaking, and we'll get there. We'll get to talking about those things. But just remember those terms. Here's another antler tine, and again, these tines can be used for pressure flaking. We have a big what we call a billet, and this is a rounded off moose billet. And to be honest with you, I think this is actually elk. Yeah, where did I get this? Yeah, no, I did buy this online from a knapping warehouse, but I know that one of those big box pet stores was selling tools, or not tools, but chew toys for dogs, and they were actually pieces of antler that could be used for at least pressure flaking. So I was like really stoked for that. I was like, wow, okay, I can go there and I can get some flint knapping tools on the cheap and without waiting in the mail for them. But anyways, this is an antler, a billet for percussion flaking. All right, it's big and heavy. And again, here's my big percussion flake here, which is a moose billet, and this is pretty heavy. It's got some heft to it, and this will come in handy when I start to explaining. Here's another elk tine. This is a smaller billet, and they're rounded out. That's the important part, is that there's a round surface on these. Pull this back so you can see. Right. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so that's and then I have a kind of a pumice stone for summer braiding. This is actually pumice stone for when I'm tanning, but this also comes in handy for light abrading. Now, abraders like this rough rock here is good for softening or preparing your platforms. Now, there's a lot of terminology in flint knapping. It's an art and a science. To me, more so a science. Once you get the science down, then it becomes an art. but the science part of it, there's tons and tons. There's a glossary of terminology, and we have to set up our platforms in order to take off the proper flake in the way and in the direction that we want. And you need an abrader to do that. And this is a type of abrader, which is this pumice stone or this rough rock as well. I have some. I'm going to move into more store-bought pieces. These are some just rough sanding abraders and different grit. This is a really rough abrader, and this is a medium, and this is a really fine abrader. And again, these help set up our platforms. And you can't abrade enough when you're trying to set up a good platform to take your flakes away. Okay? So this is what we have. Okay? So now we're going to get into excuse me, our pressure flakers. All right, and our more modern tools. Okay, modern by way I mean they're not natural. And I have what they call copper boppers, and I bought these online. We'll share the link. Flintnappingtools.com is a good resource to get your supplies for this sort of thing if you're interested. And these are different sizes of copper boppers, and what these are wood-handled pieces that have a piece of like latex or rubber around them, and they have like a copper cap filling on filled with a little bit of lead to give them some heft and a weight. And there's different sizes, and you've seen I've used mine quite a bit. And copper is really good, and I guess there's archaeological evidence that our ancestors did use copper for shaping stone. So you know, when I say modern versus primitive in the realm of flint napping, we'll talk about kind of like natural tools excuse me versus metal tools. All right, so we start using metal or pieces of copper, and these are copper boppers here. And then I have some pressure flakers, you know, another thinner copper bopper. And then these are some pressure flakers that I've made, and these all have pieces of copper wire or nails that I've drilled in, that I've nailed in, sawed off the tip of the nail, and then sharpened that end. And these are good pressure flakers. They're a quick and dirty way of making a pressure flaker out of copper. So there. Here's another one here that's got more of a flat head to it, and this helps in shaping. And then we have what we call kind of a longer pressure flaker, which is called an ishi stick. And what we know, us modern folks, what we know of of flint napping, we got from a Yaqui Indian, a Native American from California, who unfortunately was brought in after his family his tribe was pretty much decimated, and he was part of a living museum in California at the turn of the century, the turn of the first century, in the 1900s, for the turn of the 20th century. And he taught a lot of us modern primitive tech enthusiasts what we know of in regards to a lot of primitive technology, things that we had forgotten or had lost or didn't understand, by way of flint napping, by way of warrioring, you know, making bows and arrows, archery, how primitive people lived. And that's the way he lived before he was absconded from living freely in California. And so he used a stick, like a long stick with a metal or a copper tip on it, that gave him leverage, gave him a lot of power in pressure flaking off flakes from obsidian or even glass. So this is a modern version of an ishi stick. I believe his was made of wood or something like that. So this is what this piece is. Okay, just a recap of everything that I've got going on here. Okay, primarily safety. Have some safety goggles. Protect your lungs. I've got leather padding. This is my leather to protect my hands, and you hold them like this. For years I used just this here, but this got a hole in it, so I made another one. And then I just double it up like that, and now this also protects my wrist. These are kind of leather platforms that are just a bunch of leather glued together, and I've just cut out a shape for the flakes to travel. This is another one, and then we have our both natural and metal napping tools. Okay, and here we've got our abraders here. We've got our percussion flakers here, which are big ones here. Our pressure flakers are here. So if I wanted to organize this properly, this would be our pressure flakers, percussion flakers here, our abraders over here. And then this one is for shaping. That's why it's kind of flat. And this is also the ishi stick, or a longer percussion flaker. So for the most part, this is what you need for flint napping as far as tools is concerned. At the end of the day, any old sharp piece of rock will do. For example, I have some pieces of obsidian here that are just flakes, and you can see that you don't need to shape this in any sort of way to use this as a cutting tool. So just so you know, this is, you see how thin this can get, how sheer it is. All right, so this is dangerous even just without shaping it, so be careful if you choose to do this. Nice. So I finally get to open up my box from from FlintNappingSpalls.com. This is where I get my source of nappable rock. Again, you can use porcelain or glass. Old beer bottle bottoms and whatnot work just fine. So I'm using a piece of chert here. I'm going to open this up and just cut away the tape here. It works just like an X-Acto blade. It's just as sharp, if not sharper, in most cases. It's like that. Piece of chert. Let's see what I got here. I don't remember what I got. Oh, yeah. Sharp edges, please handle. FlintNappingSupplies.com. There you go. That's where you can get some. And I got some nice big pieces of obsidian. Nice big spalls versus flakes. So we'll see what we can make out of this. Obsidian is volcanic glass. And yeah, nice big pieces. Awesome. Good quality stuff. I've been buying stone from them for a few years now. So imagine somebody who's making a living selling a box of rocks. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad they're available. So anyways, this is going to be my source for materials for napping.